In this program, we'll learn how to read data from files. So I'll call this project File Reading. And I'll make the name of the class Reading from Files. Throw in some documentation to remind myself what's going on, including the name of the file. We're going to need some files, so I'm going to go to a program we already wrote and get dogs.txt. I will copy this program. I'm going to intentionally place it in a bad spot. You don't want to put it in default package. We don't really want to put it in src for source. I'm going to put it there anyway. That way it won't work when I try to find it. I'll move it to the correct place later on. All right, we're going to try to read from dogs.txt. First, we're going to create a file object. I believe it's the first time we've done that in this class. So I'll have file1 equals new file, and I'll use the string dogs.txt. Looks like we got some importing to do. Need to import file from java.io package. I'm going to slide that down to a different place, and I'm going to get rid of the file and put an asterisk in there for the wildcard to import almost everything from the .io package. We're also going to need a scanner object to open the file. So the file object is created, and then we try to open the file. I'll call this scanner object input file 1. And inside for an argument, instead of system.in, which we've used a lot, I'll use file1. And of course we have to import for the scanner. And we still have this issue. We've got to have a way to handle an exception if the file doesn't exist. So there's a file not found exception. We could also use an IO exception. I'll leave it this time with a file not found exception. All right, we're going to get ready to display the contents of the file dogs.txt. I'll display this for the users to see so they know what's coming. We can use file1, even though that is a file object. When we just use that there, it's what we call a toString argument, will give you the string of the file name. So it will show dogs.txt in that spot where you see file1 on line 25. While we're at it, we know eventually we're going to have to close this file. The same thing as when we write to a file, it's important to close it. It's also important to close it when we read from it, especially if we're going to end up reading from the same file potentially later on in the program. That doesn't happen in this example, but it is important to close the file. Well, I tried to run the program and can't find dogs.txt, so there's that file not found exception. Happens on line 22 when the scanner object input file 1 tries to open. That's because I have it in the wrong place. I will slide it up there and put it in to where it just says file reading. You'll notice it's shifted to the left a little to a different level in the project, and now things work out. Here are the contents of dogs.txt because it was able to find the file, so no exception was thrown. Now we're going to use a loop to read all the lines of the file until there are none left. We'll use a while loop because we don't know how many lines there are. So while input file 1, scanners have this nice method called .hasNext. There's also hasNextLine. We'll use .hasNext, which looks for the next character. While that's true, that there's more in the file, we're going to keep reading all the lines of the file. So .hasNext will return either true or false. If it's returned true, this loop will continue to run. I'll need a string, I'll call it woof, and it will equal input file 1 .next line. And we'll go ahead and display woof on the screen. This will continue as long as Input file 1 dot has next is true. Once there's nothing left in the file, that will be false. The while loop will end, and the file will close, and the program will end. Let's check it out. There's all the stuff. There's the dog names, and you may recall we had some numbers when we made that project earlier. There is the file. So again, this loop continues to run while dot has next is true. Let's copy another text file, crayons03.txt. You notice it's got some colors in there left over from the last time we ran it. Now I'll paste it in the correct spot. And we're going to ask the users to give us a file name. So here comes a prompt asking for just that. And we'll make them use the .txt. We could include it for them by adding it to whatever they type in, but we'll make them do all the work this time. Let's check and make sure this works out all right. There it is. We'll get another scanner object. I'll call it keyboard because this is where the users are going to use the keyboard to actually give us a file name. So I'll go a string object, your file name, equals keyboard dot next line. Then we'll create the file object and open it. I've already used file underscore 1, so I'll use file underscore 2 this time. So here comes file, file2 equals new file. And as an argument in the parentheses, I'll put your file name. That is a string. I don't know what their file name is going to be, but it is a string, and we'll put it in there. Then we'll have a scanner. I'll call it input file 2. And that equals new scanner. And for its argument, I'll put in file underscore 2, that file object. A lot of the rest of this code we can copy and paste and just make some changes. Everywhere there's a 1, we can put a 2. That'll save us some time. So that's what I'll do. So we're going to alert the users. We're going to show them the contents of file 2. Again, that will return the string of the file name. Change the while loop to file 2 everywhere it is. I don't know that this file is going to be about dogs, so I'll make a more generic identifier for the string. I'll call it line of file. Of course, we're reading lines of the file. Now, what I didn't copy and paste was closing the file. Always very important to do. So I'll do that right now and change that 1 to a 2. And we're ready to go. So we'll check out the file crayons03.txt. And there are the contents. If I type in a name of a file that doesn't exist, for example, notafile.txt, there's the file not found exception thrown starting on line 47, where the scanner object tried to open a file that did not exist. We're going to check out some better ways to open files in the next program.